Senator Ernst.
Thank you. General Semonite, I want to thank you very, very much. I appreciated the time that you took this last couple of weeks while Congress was back in their home states to visit us in Cedar Rapids at their first federally funded portion of their flood control system. It meant a lot to have you there and working with you and others on your team to find a path forward for the citizens of Cedar Rapids. They fought very hard for that project, and we're very thankful for that. So kudos to you and your team. And General Spellman, you joined us earlier this year in April in western Iowa in Glenwood, Mills County, for a very healthy discussion and field hearing on the flooding that we have seen throughout the western part of our state. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that with you, General Semonite. We have had very devastating flooding in western Iowa, and a number of those communities are still underwater. And if you could this morning, could you provide us with an update on the progress that the Corps is making with repairing and rebuilding a number of those levees in southwest Iowa?
Yes, ma'am. So as you know, this was probably the wettest, second wettest year in the last 124 years. We really have broken this repair down into three big phases. We had 212 levee breaches, 13 of them repaired as of today. We've, on our second phase, the ability to be able to go back and to be able to restore those levees. We've got 182 different requests. We think we've got that under control. And it really goes back to the longer plan of how do you continue to recommend a study for the flood protection to be able to make that happen. We're absolutely committed to be able to restore that back and to be able to get the level of safety back. And if you don't mind, I just would want to go back to your thing on Cedar Rapids, and it probably also affects Senator Kramer. As you know better than anybody in this room, that would never have seen the light of day had we continued to be able to have a benefit-cost ratio of 2.5 where people are either losing their lives or they're losing their property. We're having the same thing in Fargo-Moorhead. We as a committee and we as a federal government have to find a way of somehow getting those projects. The supplemental was the savior here. It was able to get your project approved, but the bottom line is we still have communities that are affected with an arbitrary metric that we've got to be able to figure out a way around.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree completely with that. The benefit to cost ratio is very detrimental to those of us that live in rural communities. And it's not that our lives or property are less valuable to us than somebody living along the coastlines where they may have million-dollar homes and so forth. But certainly we do need to make sure that that is adjusted, that will work better for everybody across the United States. And just as a follow-up for the first question, what we've heard is that there will only be minimal levels of protection in place for a portion of southwest Iowa before the start of next year's flood season. And what plans are being worked on, maybe in coordination with FEMA or other agencies, to make sure that the communities along the miles of these compromised levees will have adequate protection come next spring?
So I think we probably need to lay this out for you and show you exactly what the plan is. Obviously, we can really only do the response. That's what's under control. But also, Congress has been very, very good in the supplementals. The $17.4 billion, that's going in the ground. A lot of this could very easily be covered in the next supplemental that's coming. So that's where you go from really that short-term recovery into a much more longer plan to be able to give you the level of resiliency you need out in those communities. But if you want, I'll have my staff come and lay that out for you with what's currently going in the ground and where do we see future tasks that could be done, and then what is the funding mechanism to make that happen?
Right, and that would be fantastic. And both General, for you and Mr. Fisher, you're both familiar with the situation, I hope, that we have in Hamburg, Iowa. General Spellman is nodding his head. It is a really difficult situation, and as we begin working on this next WRDA, do you have any recommendations or policy changes that could help some of these small communities like Hamburg improve their flood protection infrastructure or potentially continue using temporary structures?
From a policy perspective, I think we certainly want to work with you, Senator, in this committee on what authorizations and what things we might need to address problems like that. I'll let the General address what's currently being done and what's being done here in the near term.
Yeah, I think on the tactical side, You know, state was very good. They stepped up with $6.3 million. We got the design all done. The city still needs $3 million. And so we're a little bit of a challenge there. Whatever we can do, we got the federal side covered. I don't know if we necessarily have a solution there. Maybe we can go back in and redesign somehow to get a cheaper cost. But we're all in to try to figure out how we can fix ditch 6 levee in Hamburg, okay?
Thank you. Yes,
ma'am.
God bless Mayor Crane and all the citizens there in Hamburg. It's been a really challenging number of decades, we'll put it like that, for that community. And because it is a rural, very, very small community, they are economically challenged when it comes to putting up those types of dollars as well. So thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate it.
Thank